Well, speaking of shamelessly begging for votes, the deputy leader of the Labor Party has been caught on film practically begging, pleading for Muslim votes. Have a look at this.
If me resigning as an MP now would bring a ceasefire, I would do it. I would do it. And if Labour get into power, we will recognise Palestine. I will push not only to recognise, but there is nothing to recognise at the moment, sadly. It's decimated. We have to rebuild.
Patrick, this could be the Deputy Prime Minister of the UK 5 weeks from now. What on earth is she doing? Did I hear her right? Did she say she would resign her position in Parliament if it could cause a ceasefire to break out in Gaza?
Honestly, look, can I ask you to sponsor me when I claim asylum in Australia in a few years' time, please? This is absolutely horrendous what's going on here. The most visible sign yet that I've ever seen of British politics on the left taking the knee to Islam, surrounded by a load of Muslim men in what looked like the back room of a mosque who couldn't even look at her, not a woman in sight, highlighting the sectarianism and I would argue sexism at the moment among certain quarters in British politics. That is the deputy leader of the Labour Party, the woman who could be our deputy prime minister, saying that she would resign, the Labour Party would recognise Palestine as a state. Salman Rushdie himself came out and said that we are seeing support for Hamas growing in that region. All the opinion polls over there suggest it. So a recognised free Palestinian state would be an internationally recognised terrorist state, which does not seem like a particularly good idea to me. We have at the moment independent candidates running for election at this election with the Palestinian flag behind them and the slogan, "Lend Gaza your vote." We had police officers smashed in the face with a glass. They've suffered serious facial injuries at a pro-Palestine protest just the other day. The Labour Party has decided that they want to win these people back, just wave them off. What the problem is for Labour is that they courted the Muslim vote in Britain, which has been growing steadily now for decades. They took it for granted. That vote has turned against them, and now they will literally do anything to get it back, including begging a room full of men for their vote. Spoiler alert, she won't get it anyway.
Unbelievable stuff. Hey, one more thing. Rishi Sunak, before he called the election, one of the last things he did was to pass emergency legislation banning anyone under 18 from being prescribed puberty blockers. Now, the NHS has already stopped prescribing them. Now, however, any doctor in the UK who prescribes these drugs to minors will be struck off. The ban lasts until September 3rd. Why is it emergency legislation and what happens after September 3rd?
Yeah, well, it's emergency legislation because it is an emergency, I'm afraid. We've had Wild West doctors handing out puberty blockers like they were candy at a sweet shop, and it's been going on for far too long. And what we are now seeing is the backlash to that from people who say I was vulnerable, I had co-issues such as things, unfortunately, like autism, etc., or other conditions that perhaps in some ways led them down that direction, and there was a ready supply of doctors who were willing to take drastic action. There is a massive fear about what happens after this general election. Would a Labour Party that, again, has courted a certain demographic of the pro-LGBT brigade there, would they renege on some of these issues? What they have already said they do, though, is make it easier for anyone who's over the age of 18 to legally change gender. That is a good line of attack for the Conservative Party, that if you vote Labour, conceivably you will have more men in women's changing rooms. But when it comes to the kids, that is a massive concern, and it remains to be seen exactly what will happen, whether we will go back to doctors prescribing that medication.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see if Australian politicians are watching what's happening there in the UK and whether we'll ever get an inquiry into puberty blockers in this country. Patrick, thanks so much for your time.